Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. And we're gonna start off, I'm gonna introduce myself. Have everyone go around, just introduce yourselves, and then we'll introduce our panelists and all, okay? First off, I'm Sue Sullivan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Newmarket Business Improvement District. And this morning, we're gonna be discussing Plan Newmarket. This is a planning study that began around 2017. And after a large community process, was finally passed by the BPDA Planning Board of Directors in August of 23. And was actually codified into the Boston Zoning Commission voting in February of this year. So why don't we start? I'm gonna do the panelists last. We'll have everyone go around. Let us start.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Bill Cutler. I'm president of the Sherwood Youth House Association. Don't know what that is? Talk to me afterwards. And I'll tell you what, I was a transportation planner, I retired 2 years ago, and one of the last jobs I worked on was Plan Newmarket. So, continuing my involvement here.
I'm Josh Rossi, distributing, and board, that's awesome.
That's my two seniors with Keith. I'm Simon Boyd, the Red Bull Companies, we own second chemistry.
This is Rocky Specific Association.
Sons Construction.
And Dave Joyce, control with Boston South.
Barker Jemison Companies, Crosstown Center, and Hampton.
Ben Murphy, Newmarket BID.
And Sierra Mink-Maynard, also Newmarket BID.
And on Zoom, we have Chris, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, Chris Artman with Clear Channel. Just so you know, I've had a couple of connectivity issues. So if I drop or am
We'll go back to
not
Chris.
clear, I'll let you know.
How about Al Capichetti?
Al Capichetti, property owner, 1190 Mass Ave.
Are we having trouble?
There we go. Try again.
Property owner, 1190 Massachusetts Avenue.
Thanks. I see Pete Kenichi.
Yep. Good morning, Dan Carucci. I work with Colliers here in Boston.
Great. Chris Hartman? Jim Elka?
Chris Artman, Clear Channel.
Jim?
That's Jim Elcock, Colliers International.
John O'Donnell?
John O'Donnell, Oliver Street Capital.
Michael Feldman?
Michael Feldman, Feldman Geospatial, and owner of 152 Hamden Street.
And who am I missing? Am I just have numbers?
There's another Michael and a phone.
Another Michael?
Yeah, Michael Coskren from Oliver Street Capital as well.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Anyone else on there? Okay. If anyone else joins, they can just join it. Now I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves. Each of them has been involved in Plan Newmarket in one way or another, and will be involved going forward. So why don't we start? I'm gonna start on the far end and go Ted.
Thanks, Sue. My name is Ted Schwartzberg. I'm Assistant Deputy Director for Planning Review at the Boston Planning Department, formerly BPDA, formerly PRA. And in my last role, I was a neighborhood planner and I was one of the planning department's team leads for Plan Newmarket.
And I'm Kevin Deaver, principal and co-founder of Rudy Architects, which is based on Albany Street. I live in Dorchester. And we founded Rudy Architects almost 20 years ago, and have really involved ourselves in the community process with respect to balancing design and development goals. I was an advisory board member of the Plan Newmarket team, which was a multi-year process.
Michael Rothschild, Avid Investments, we're a local property owner, investor, development experience both in the area and elsewhere. Been around the community for a very, very long time.
very involved with Plan Newmarket, spirit that effort as well, but currently serve as the chairman of the board for the Newmarket BID.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the BID for hosting us this morning. My name is Tanya Del Rio. As of February of this year, I'm the commissioner at the Inspectional Services Department. And in my last role, I headed the mayor's team who addressed the unsheltered homelessness situation with a focus on the massive Cass intersection and Newmarket. Happy to talk about both experiences and work in progress on both fronts with you this morning.
And I don't see Andrew Grace. I don't think he's joined us yet. He is our fifth panelist. He should be joining us shortly. So just thank you, everyone. As some of you know, Newmarket came into existence back in the 1950s. When the wholesale food companies that sold their wares in Quincy Market were taken over by eminent domain and moved down here to this area, which was a outlying area of Boston. Gus can actually speak to this because I think his company was one of them that got moved down here. And so it was dubbed Newmarket, okay, because it was being Quincy Market. From that time on, the district has been the industrial backbone of the city. Today, we have well over 20,000 people working here in a 1 square mile area. We have, and more than 50% of them live less than 5 miles from where they work, which is huge for the vibrancy of our neighborhoods. We have more than 650 properties, more than 450 businesses. And while our businesses have become incredibly diverse, we still boast the fact that if you eat something fresh in Greater Boston, there's a 90% chance that it came through Newmarket. And as our businesses have grown more diverse and maintain their industrial nature, if you are building a building in Greater Boston, there's a 75% chance that some part of it came through Newmarket, whether it was the architectural, the engineering, the building supplies, or whatever. Okay. So as an additional note, residential has long been forbidden in Newmarket. This was not because we didn't like residents, but it was because what happens is everyone thinks it's very cool to live in an industrial area. That is until they actually live here. Okay, and it takes less than a week or two for them to start calling the mayor's office and the police department and all, because trucks are backing down at 5 in the morning. Or trash trucks are rumbling through at 2 in the morning and all. And so what happens is then businesses end up losing. They end up getting more restricted, and they leave. And as we all know, we need industrial businesses in order to supply the city. So that being said, it's against this backdrop that we asked the BPDA a number of years ago to initiate the Plan Newmarket study. So I'm going to ask, and I don't have Andrew on here. Andrew, you're not here yet, right? Just making sure, okay? I'm gonna ask my first question, and that is, I'm gonna go down the end to Ted, and you're gonna cover a couple of things here. I want you to tell us what Newmarket zoning looked like before, what it looks like now, and what we can do now that we couldn't do.
That's a great question, Sue. As Sue mentioned, there was a lot of inertia in City Hall to support Newmarket's ongoing growth and support continued investment in the neighborhood. And there was a zoning update phase that was done about a decade before. This was an incremental around the edges kind of use oriented update to the code. And with the BID launching and the city looking more comprehensively beyond use, the code was updated to reflect that. So the plan process looked at more than zoning. It looked at transportation, public realm, infrastructure. We can talk about those topics later, but zoning, the main updates and what differentiated this update from the last one was that there was not a single unified Newmarket zoning district, for example. So part of what we commonly think of as Newmarket was in the Roxbury neighborhood district. So cleaned up the map to unify a single Newmarket neighborhood, and that's Newmarket spelled in one word, so we're aligned with Sue's branding. And then within that one Newmarket neighborhood district, there's 3 sub areas. So there's a core industrial area. There's an arts-oriented district that the character of the buildings are a little bit different. So that's, for example, where the Feldman building is. There's a lot of beautiful old buildings that merit preservation. And then there's a third area that is a more growth-oriented area that's closer to where we're sitting right here. And after we identified these 3 separate districts, we updated the uses again. So for example, things like daycare weren't allowed, things like bars weren't allowed. So now people can open those kind of businesses, special permits. And most importantly, and I'll end on the most important note, is that we updated dimensions for the first time in a very long time. So something that's a big change is that heights in Newmarket, depending where you are, there's a range of heights in those 3 different districts, but up to 95 feet in some areas and up to 140 feet in other parts of Newmarket. And that's something, again, that you wouldn't need a special permit for or zoning for variance. That's a new height limit that we collectively, City Hall, and then everyone who participated in the process thinks is an appropriate new height limit for Newmarket. And that's codified on the books and zoning. And grateful for the support of the BID for helping to come up with those rules, and our advisor, including Kevin, who was our resident architect on the group. So we're excited now to see what the market does with these new dimensions and use limits.
And so just specifically, Ted, just to add a little more clarity, what we've done was try to maintain the industrial nature of Newmarket, which it needs to be, but also accounted for the fact that we need greater density with the amount of with the prices of properties all going up, with a number of different types of things we want to bring in here. The different areas have whether it's the core area that has to have industrial first floor and I'm trying to think right now, Ted, you've got the details on that. But each area has to have an industrial component. But unlike before, where it was almost completely industrial, it's at a point now where you can have a lot of different uses up above, or you can have different uses in different areas of the buildings and not, but as long as you have an industrial component. Can you just expound on that a little bit, Ted?
Sure. Well, philosophically speaking, you know, my training as a planner, often when you look at other contexts, the industrial areas are kind of like a fallow area where investment and development hasn't come yet. And that's actually not the case here in Newmarket. It's the exact opposite, as Sue said, that Newmarket is industrial, not for lack of other uses wanting to come here. It's a very deliberate land use decision to have this be a jobs-oriented area. And the subtitle of the Plan Newmarket is Plan Newmarket 21st Century Industrial Neighborhood Plan. And what that means practically is that, yes, we want to affirm spaces, you know, for our food to come in and out of Boston, for structural materials, and that those core functions, those job producing uses are here to stay. But as we look forward to the future of Newmarket, we imagine sort of a second vertical tier coming up above those uses. So what the zoning encodes is industrial uses on the first 2 floors, and then people can go up above that and build, for example, labs. This plan was being written at a time when labs were very hot, but the zoning is quite permissive apart from residential uses to allow the neighborhood to grow vertically and introduce new higher value uses that can live alongside these industrial uses that Sue mentioned earlier.
Great, thanks, Ted. Tanya, in your role as Commissioner of Inspectional Services, what effect do you expect the new zoning regulations to have on the interactions that property owners and developers will have with your?
Yeah, I think this is a very exciting. It's like gonna be a very exciting development, and we're gonna see its effects happen first in the areas that have been rezoned, like Newmarket and a couple others, Mattapan, East Boston. And then little by little, as the planning department kind of moves forward in their work of updating the zoning code. Which is, congratulations to the planning department, that's a big piece to tackle. It's gonna I think it's gonna bring a few benefits for people in and business owners, property owners in the areas that have been rezoned. Number one, it's going to make things more predictable. It's going to make the rules clearer. Now I'll explain why. And then number two, it's gonna reduce your time to permit. A couple of us were talking about it just now. The current state of things, and I want to say, rest assured, we are working on this. It's a long-term project, but the current state of things is that permits simply take too long. And this is one piece of the puzzle that we have to tackle to start reducing that. There's others, and I'll talk about the work going on to achieve that. But as far as rezoning, here's what we'll see. Because this area now has been, like, the zoning's been completed, we hope that most projects that are going through a permitting process in Newmarket are going to be skipping the phase of seeking zoning relief, going through a community process that you need to go through in order to come in front of the zoning board of appeal. That part of the permitting process can take months. Some of that wait time is built in. There's a required notice period that we have to give to the public so that they know something's coming before the board. After a decision's been made, there's a required baked in waiting period, so citizens can appeal the decisions. And there's the time it takes from the decision being made to write it. So there's weeks and weeks that happen within someone going to ask for zoning relief, that we hope in most cases are going to be eliminated because most projects are simply going to be as of right per the zoning. Which brings me to predictability. When you have a zoning code that's clear and most of the projects are just simply abiding by those rules that are clear to everyone, you don't need to go to the board to ask for an exception. It's just more predictable, right? Architects can do their work, design professionals can do their work and just understand the rules. The situation right now is because the zoning code in many neighborhoods, not Newmarket anymore, is old and outdated. Most projects, 90+%, I think, need to seek zoning relief and go through the board and do all this process that I just described. Newmarket is going to see fewer and fewer of those cases, and so I think that's going to be a huge positive change that we're going to start to see. And it's a lot of the work that the planning department's completed, and now it's on ISD to enforce that. So yeah, I think that's the big effect on the zoning. We are watching this process kind of roll out in more and more neighborhoods in the city, and it's what the mayor promised she would do when she took office, is that she would tackle this very complex and very unwieldy zoning code, and I applaud my colleagues for doing that.
And I know, Tanya, you're also making inroads in the department.
Yeah.
You're making a number of changes to shorten processes.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that. And
yeah, I mean, I can talk about a couple of things that are starting. I started in ISD back in February with that mandate from the mayor of whatever our process is, we all know it's complex, please make it better. And that's kind of like the simple task that I was given. And upon arriving, it took me a few weeks to even get an understanding of our own process, because even our own staff had doubts and lack of clarity and just silos going on that made things hard. We've now identified a couple of places in this process where there can be some improvements, and I'll share with you the first ones that we're working on. First, our planning and zoning division. So these are the folks that when you're bringing a permit application to us, they're going to look at whether it meets the zoning or not, and if it needs to go through the board seeking a zoning relief and a variance. And then after that process happens, they're also going to look at they're going to review the building code and see if your project meets the building review codes. That That process in plans and zoning has a couple of bottlenecks that we're trying to get rid of. The first one, it's kind of simple, but really we have only one supervisor of that group of plans examiners. And that supervisor, every single project in this city, and mind you, we issue 40,000 permits a year. Every single one comes across one person's desk and they assign it to a plans examiner. You would think it's simple, like just press this button and pick which staff member is gonna do it, but when the volume is such that one person starts building up a backlog, that already is building at this point in time a 2 to 3 week extra waiting period because of the backlog that this one supervisor has, because it's just the untenable volume. So we're gonna split that function into 3 people, that supervisor plus 2 supervisors, where we're gonna kind of divide the plans examiner's team. One team's gonna focus on the smaller projects, the 2-3 deckers, the porches, the the swimming pools in the summer. And then we'll have a specialized team that's looking at more complex projects like the high rises that you see downtown, some that you might start seeing here. And we're gonna specialize our team. Right now, you could have a plans examiner that has in their queue, again, a large complex skyrise, and the 3-decker that's could be waiting behind in line this long project that's, it should have just gotten out the door. So we're gonna divide that. We'll have 3 people doing the work of assigning, and that'll, we hope, get rid of it, at least that first bottleneck, that's 2 to 3 weeks. Second of all, like I said, I shared that we're splitting the teams, we're specializing folks, and we hope that will make the reviews faster. And then lastly, just I gotta be really frank and honest about that. With both improved management and technology, we are looking at improving the communication, the back and forth between the plans examiner and the applicant. Right now, it's done through an unwieldy portal, where if the plans examiner needs more information, they'll upload a letter there, an email is sent. All of us know emails are easily missed. It's not an easy process, and then lots of miscommunication happens. We are going to implement a different software that will make that communication smoother and we hope faster. We're also going to use technology to improve our accountability measures, just make sure that our staff is in fact completing the volume of reviews that they need to be completing. And then the last thing I'll say, this is not implemented yet, but I want to share it because we're in conversations about it. We've been really closely monitoring what other cities are doing around AI for plan reviews. It makes sense. City of Austin is implemented it already. Once your AI learns your code and implements the changes in your code, you can use it to speed up the plans review and have our staff, instead of performing, this really magnifying glass look at our code, very complicated codes, they can have some of the work done for them and then just monitor and review. So again, we're not implementing this just yet, but we are monitoring what's happening in other cities and closely considering implementing that in the next year. So yeah, more to come. It's not work.
That's exciting, Tanya. Thank you for sharing all of that with us, because I know that certainly Plan Newmarket is extremely important to our area and all, but what happens at inspectional services is important to everyone as they go through any kind of process like this. So I really appreciate the changes you're trying to put into place. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now ask Michael. Michael, you're not only a property owner, you're an investor, you're a developer. What are your expectations and hopes for the future? By the way, you're also the chair of the Newmarket BID, but what are your expectations and hopes for the future of the Newmarket area, given this new planning initiative and new coming regulations?
Thanks for the question, Sue. Yeah, I've been around this area probably my entire life. Business here, buildings here, properties here, so it's very familiar with the area. Past, present, and future. Part of the goal, I think, of what we've done most recently by Plan Newmarket and also the BID, is to sort of change the approach, change the visibility, change the perception of the area. Because when you look at the area from sort of a demand profile, which is what I tend to focus on, I kind of break demand down into different pockets. One of which is there's demand for the existing building stock that we have, which is often very old, maybe 50 years old. So there's only so many companies in Boston and surrounding areas that need that type of building stock that need to be here. So that's sort of one demand profile. And we've been fortunate, despite our challenges of the past several years, vacancy rates often 2 or 3%, right? So it's quite substantially. I think they'll continue to do so, property values have continued to rise. So that's all positive. The second sort of demand profile that I think exists here is from folks that have been here for a long time. I look at institutional expansion from whether it's BMC, whether it's BU, whether it's Edens, whether it's Suffolk Construction, whether it's Eversource buying property. So I think it's folks that are comfortable with the area already that are acquiring other parcels, thinking about what to do. So that's sort of pocket number two. The third pocket, I think that people want to hear about, talk about a little bit the future of what other companies and other development projects and businesses might look like. And from my perspective, what I hope is to see, certain things like it's like there's Greentown Labs, Somerville, there's the engine. So you have all these new energy technologies, whether it's construction technologies, tough tech they call it, small scale nuclear reactors getting built all over the world. So you have paradigm shifts that are happening. A lot of them are happening right here in Boston, many at MIT. So when you start to look at the time frames and what could happen, hopefully here, right? That's part of what we're all anticipating. But you look at things that even go further that are going to change our lives, the world that we live in. There's nanotechnology that I'm aware of that's being worked on at MIT that if and when it comes out, it's going to drive demand, like we probably saw during the life science for the last 10 or 15 years. So if you anticipate sort of those new technologies as they come out, those drive the demand for new builds, new product. And the challenge then becomes timing of when they get funded, when they're ready to grow out of their existing incubation space, perhaps. Do you have the right building stock for those companies? Because that's not the building stock that we have right now, in my view. So that's sort of the three pockets of demand that I see. And I think that third pocket is the one that we're going to have to focus on to try to attract both incubators and companies like I've talked about that are comfortable in this neighborhood with the workforce, transportation improvements we have on the Fairmount line, shuttle services, things like that. And yes, there are hurdles to that because those are very, very expensive buildings. There's one proposed right now on Bradson Street that people may be familiar with. But I think the first one under the new zone will now stop. But that's a several $100 million building. So you don't start a project like that until you have clear visibility of tenancy and rents. So if you have a building, let's just hypothetically say it's $1,000 a foot to build a building, you have to have rents 65, 70 or more going in to even think about new construction. So that's the hesitancy. We've not seen rents like that in the center. Might at some point, but that's sort of where the future is leading us. It sort of needs to be to a degree through new ground up construction.
Thanks, Michael. And that actually leads us right into a question I want to ask Kevin. And Kevin, you've been the architect for 960 Mass Ave, known as the Standard Electric Building, FW Webb, and Dorchester Brewery in Newmarket. There's some great, well designed buildings here. How do you see the planned Newmarket zoning changes? How do you see that it will allow for building designs that'll change the perception that industrial has to look blighted in underutilized? And are you excited about the possibilities from a design perspective?
Short answer is yes, very, very excited, and thank you for mentioning those projects and not just trying to plug the work of what we do. We also do a lot of work for developers in the greater Boston region, and we'll talk about like why I'm specifically excited about Newmarket, but again, sort of bringing this backdrop of where Boston is in an ecosystem already in Massachusetts. And when you hear the term industrial, a lot of folks go right to big warehouses and big manufacturing sites, which are being built in the suburbs of Boston, the 128, 495, 55. That is the place that's hosting kind of, more logistics based distribution models or last mile distribution. And the thing that I think we've realized, and that a lot of cities around the world realize, is that cities just need their own industrial backyard. They need something to make the city run. And in this room right now, I heard food, transportation, construction. These are things that cities need to rebuild, to build itself out of issues like housing, to feed itself healthy and to plug into other efforts to keep prices down in the city, as well as transportation. We need a place, a node, something to happen and take advantage of the fact that Boston's the center of this ecosystem that is thriving, actually. So I think that the difficulty of trying to welcome last mile distribution into Boston is that Newmarket's comprised of a lot of different sites, but very few owners that create a big patchwork. So it's maximizing the value of the property. I think you will find both ISD and the planning department very welcome and ready to help you achieve that value growth of your property. And Ted talked about dimensions, and Johnny probably has to work with dimensions a lot. And that's exactly what architects do, is give the final vision to what this is. And we work really hard on the ground floor. And why that's important is that there are all sorts of pre-existing tools that the city has on its website around transportation, how to plan a safe street. So this kind of concept of three different distinct districts in Newmarket all have to do with making sure that you can see a blueprint already for how your ground floor could be constructed. Allowing for trucks to maneuver in and out, how to do that safely with pedestrians also crossing through this district. So I will say, because of the Plan Newmarket role, I've really tried to make that vision, there for you in the documents. And I'll go ahead and get back to pointing to examples of exciting work. The reason why we're keeping residential out is that we want to have a thriving 24/7 area where people can work, multiple shifts and kind of just keep going. And that's a hard thing to balance with residential districts. And from a design perspective, when you even hear of a mixed-use residential district, there are a lot of things that probably come into mind that look similar here. But when you look at an industrial, 21st century industrial, sky's the limit in terms of the imagination, but it has a lot to do with blending different uses. And I can say that the FW Web project kind of embodies that. It has multiple issues with this distribution, warehousing, customer, retail facing, servicing contractors, surface parking, which is a hard thing to kind of manage, but occasionally it's a necessity. We just hope to see form follow function as what we do, and let the imagination go. But there are a lot of tools that exist already and make a process go smoothly. But
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. So what you've heard is that Plan Newmarket is all about increasing density and economic growth in Newmarket, while at the same time maintaining our industrial base and character. But we want everyone to know that we are open and excited about welcoming new development and new businesses. Kevin made mention of, or Michael did, of the Bratson Street project, which is going to the BPDA board in December, which is an 8-story combination, industrial and lab space and flex space. There's another project in the works on Camden Street, which is a very large brick building that the individuals who are looking at doing self-storage. But as part of the zoning, we're like, we really need to have more there than just self-storage. The owners looked at it and said, hey, we can invigorate a corner of it. We can make it retail or like a bodega or a market on the first floor, but office space on the second floor. Okay, and have the self-storage there and all as well. So we're looking at all of this, and by the way, I believe, and Ted, correct me if I'm wrong. All that is now, every bit of that would now be allowable under the new zoning, am I?
Yes, there's a little bit of nuance to the conversation around self-storage, but we can get into that later.
Right, but what I'm saying is, before, there'd be a whole lot of things, okay, a bodega is a conditional use there, or a market's a conditional use there, or this or that. Whereas, as Tanya said, if things can get done and skipping the appeals process. So, but what's it gonna take to bring new businesses here and new development? The issue is, our vacancy rate is low. It's under 5%, and very few properties are for sale. I've had probably 2 or 3 companies in the last 2 to 3 months who have reached out to me and said, we want to be in Newmarket. You know, they want to buy a Newmarket, they want to own it. One of them's a nanotechnology company. And to find the space for them has been extremely difficult because they all have very specific needs. So we have to figure that out. And what will it take to bring advanced manufacturing or robotics companies or creative industries, back office uses, and a myriad of other uses here? That's what I'm talking about when I say we're looking for growth, we're looking for diversity in our businesses. How do we entice that? So the question is, and this is probably Tanya and Ted, what are some of the things the city is doing to help us? Actually, Tanya, you answered it from the inspectional services side. Ted, do you have anything to add? And Andrew was gonna be here. Andrew's sick and doesn't have a voice, right? So I feel wrong. So Ted, it's falling to you to answer that question.
Okay, this is a little bit outside my area of expertise, as Sue noted, but some of the things that the city is doing long-term is looking at public property. So for one, our streets and sidewalks. Plan Newmarket, for example, has a plan for street trees. If you look around the neighborhood now, there's not many trees. Of course, that's because if you have trees between the street and the sidewalk, trucks are gonna hit them. But that doesn't mean that you can't have trees. So one thing that Plan Newmarket does is lays out a roadmap, just as Kevin was talking about how it gives a roadmap for architects designing buildings. It also gives a roadmap for our public works and transportation departments to rebuild streets and sidewalks as they come up with the cycle for public investment, and the bid's very involved in this. And there's new planting zones, vision between sidewalk and buildings. And what that does, of course, not only will it beautify the neighborhood, and there's a great example in New Haven, their industrial analog to Newmarket, they had a similar plan for trees implemented about 40 or 50 years ago. And it actually is a really nice looking industrial district that also works for the businesses that are there. And also there's challenges in Newmarket long-term, again, for climate resilience in terms of heat and flooding. And so getting these permeable areas where there are planting zones and trees that helps address those issues. And then also in terms of city-owned property, the public sector is the biggest employer in the neighborhood. And so in Boston, we have the 1010 Mass Ave, the parking lot across the street from it, the fire department headquarters, and some properties on Atkinson Street. And so the public facilities department is looking at its portfolio. I don't really know the details of that, but the city is well aware that they are a major property owner as well. And the city wants to make sure that in the long run, it's investing in its property, does so in a manner that's consistent with the goals of Plan Newmarket. And then Tanya, I know you in your last role did a little bit of work with what the city does, more boots on the ground. My work as a planner, I look 10, 20, 30, 40 years out. Do you have any insights that, maybe for the next 10 years, what the city has in mind?
Sure, thanks for that, and I do apologize because I have to take off right after this to another commitment. But sure, what I can add is for for the right now, I think a lot of you know that in the last years, the encampments that popped up in the Newmarket Triangle and all of the activity that unsheltered homeless constituents kind of engaging in the area has been very challenging for a lot of the businesses. And I have to just shout out at this point, Sue Sullivan and the Newmarket BID, because not only have they done a tremendous amount of advocacy and placed strong demands on not just the public sector, the city, even the state, to address this situation. They've actually, and I don't see that much in like the advocacy world of this happening, is that they've actually rolled up their sleeves and been boots on the ground and become part of the solutions that they're advocating for. So in my time leading that response to the encampments last year and the year before, we physically worked hand in hand with Sue, like the whole team, on addressing those issues. I have to say that recognizing that the issues have not gone away, they're still there, and there is a longer term strategy that the city's in the middle of executing. We also recognize that we've made some strides from where we were a couple of years ago. So I welcome, if anyone wants to have a look at what the longer term strategy is, it's up on the website. But it essentially involves building up that infrastructure of services, including in places like Long Island, but also across the city, decentralizing the services from just in the Newmarket area to different places in the city. And that's a longer term strategy where we need to meet the need and meet the demand of services, enable free, convenient, usable transportation for that population to move around the different areas. And then again, whether it be the Recover Boston project that you guys have been working on, or Long Island, or Shattuck Hospital, or some other place where the scale of the services that's needed can be put in place. That's really the longer term strategy. In the meantime, there's teams on the ground addressing at the individual level what the needs are, and trying to make sure that people aren't going through their substance use, mental health crisis on the street, you know, in a place that's unsafe for them and unsafe for the public, but in a more dignified setting, and having more of those in place. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya, for all the work you did on that. I know you were instrumental in getting the new no tent ordinance through, which was a game changer here in Newmarket, as well as a number of other things as a coordinated response team leader. So I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you being here on your birthday. So.
But I have to be somewhere else.
Go for it. Okay, and so now I'm gonna open it up to everyone here and everyone on Zoom. Ask questions of our panel, ask questions of me, ask any questions, open-ended, closed, however you want to do. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah.
Hang on one second. Okay, on Zoom, who do we have?
I have a question, Clayton.
Hi, Clayton.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I think it's a great job, Sue, this morning, getting this information. Just a quick question to Ted. Do you anticipate at some point for the current owners and occupants of Newmarket to be able to be involved, not involved, but hear more details around the future and how we can participate or not? I mean, we're not always going to want to jump into everything, but just to hear more details as you're talking about the planning of Newmarket, whether it's the fire footprint or whatever, that'd be great.
Yeah, so Plan Newmarket mostly focused on the use of private property. That's what historically the BRA, BPDA focused on, and it was a separate set of planners who worked in the Public Facilities Department who planned for the city's property. And I know your question was about members of the public, not how things are organized in my office, but now those are united, and so the planning department, our work cuts across all the city's departments beyond just zoning for private property. And so I don't think there are any imminent plans or changes, you know, in the short term where public facilities is looking at any changes to the buildings that they own. But you know, these buildings have life cycles, and so you know, the 1010 Mass Ave, for example, was built as a shoe factory, I think, over 100 years ago. And there's really cool work that goes on in the fire department. I'm not sure if people are aware that it's really a regional center for specialized repairs and maintenance of fire equipment. So we have fire departments from around New England that send in their equipment to get maintenance in a way that can only be done right here in Newmarket. Kind of a tangent, but there's all these hidden gems happening right here that you learn about as you get to know the neighborhood. So I would say, to answer your question most directly, that right now there are no public processes or anything on the book, but you know, if the Public Facilities Department in the very long run wants to reorganize how the property that the city owns works, that they would engage the public, and there's some breadcrumbs in the plan document for the Public Facilities Department to follow, to think about how the city collectively serve properties in a more efficient way, to serve the customers that Tanya's team serves, as well as to encourage more private investment in the neighborhood.
Clayton, to add on to what Ted just said, I will commit to you that as soon as we as a BID hear anything that the city is looking at doing, you know, any movement of their properties, we will put it out there to our you know, our stakeholders and all, to let everyone know. There does need to be public process in these cases. You know, certainly with the addition of the new school that's going on Magazine Street, the redevelopment of the redesign and renovation of Clifford Park Playground. That whole area over there, especially with that area of the 1010 parking lot and beyond. You know, we pitched to the city a few years ago that it would be great to do something there, more than just have parking and some office space. So, Clayton, to your point, absolutely, we need to be involved when they do something.
Yeah, thank you, Sue, and thank you, Ted. I think it's a lot of us that have been here for more than 20 years. I think is really not having always clear as the time frame of what's moving, what's coming. So, but I understand it's not an easy feat for us for what we have at our feet right now. But I just want to tell you all, thank you. Have a good morning.
Thank you, Clayton. I think we have a question here.
Yeah, again, Josh. So this is it's a very specific question. Where and it falls into that demand bucket that we talked about earlier. Where in a situation where it's a condo association, and a lot of these business generations, and a lot of the generations are getting older and retiring, and isn't that second or fourth generation who's there to take over these businesses. So in the food industry, we're seeing a lot of consolidation, where larger companies are going to 128 for that last mile distribution. We're also in a building that's very, very old. I think it's the first, when this apartment was closed, to be built. Infrastructure, heating system, roof, plumbing, all of that stuff. So with the new zoning, which actually sincerely appreciated, this is a lot better for us, right? There are still restrictions. So our concern is you have this generation of people, and they've depended upon this property value as their essay families. And when they're looking to move on, we have a unique piece of property that is aged out and I don't know. It would probably, it's going to be cheaper to not get down. But in order to do that, you need a very specific buyer. And we do have these restrictions where I believe where we are is the first 2 floors in the industrial, if you want. And then above that, if we will lab space or whatever else is needed. So how do we entice that third demand bucket, right? These new technologies, these companies to come in and look at this piece of problem and say, yeah, that's where we want to be. That's where that's, you know, like this is what the bigger project, right? The
Right.
$800 million range. We feel in our building anyways, a little bit squeezed in that because of the restrictions. We might not entice developers or new technology moving to look at us. And we're at a point now where there are generations of people that are saying, hey, I've been here 30, 40 years. It's time for me to move on.
So are you okay if I started off and you think? So if I were looking at it, I would say that you're right. I've been in the building many times. It needs change. So if I were trying to entice someone, I would take someone like the nanotechnology company that just recently I was trying to find a space for and they wanted to buy. And I'd say, look, you could do this on those first couple floors. You could run your business. You could do this. This is a perfect industrial use. And up above, in those 3 floors above, you could either put offices, you could put whatever, you could put another manufacturing company above there. You could do a whole lot that would fall within the, you know, we haven't had a shortage of companies that are looking to come in. We had a company that wanted to do, you know, the big fan pieces for the windmills. Okay, now, again, they need a very large space, whether it's vertical or horizontal. You've got a horizontal space that does that kind of thing. So I would actually say that the size of your property and what people could do on it would be ideal for a lot that are looking.
How do we get into that type? We see what's going on there. We see your spot in that conversation.
I can, and I can talk about it. So, the pipeline, it doesn't really exist at the moment, and I think we're talking about, so we're premature, right? So timing wise, aligning the exit strategy, anybody may have in the community with where the market is, what people see for value, what people see for redevelopment process, they may not always match. So that's something I think you have to be, you know, considerate of. Any prospective buyer looking at a site like yours, I'm guessing, I've looked at the program, I'll speak for myself, industry folks that I work with, would say to you, maybe we buy it today, right? And you guys stay, some sort of sale leaseback, or if the exit plan is now, because no one has visibility to the future of when those companies may knock down your doors. There is no pipeline. There are other buildings and areas in the city that may be more enticing and may go first. If you look at what's happening on Dot App, those buildings are likely to get built long before any buildings get built here. Look at Dorchester, so there's a competition. So even when those new industries emerge, there's still going to be competition. So the timing may not align. But I think you have to unfortunately be patient. I think things will continue to appreciate, but you can talk to brokerage companies. We have some on the phone, and you can put your oar in the water. But I'm not sure at the moment you're going to find what you're looking for, but down the road you may. It's just a question of, yeah, to be clear, we're not looking. So it's just, I can see over the next 5 to 10 years the age of businesses, right? And speaking with them, you know, being on the board and talking to these people all the time. 5 years from now, they're sons and daughters and sisters and that want nothing to do with cutting meat or schlepping them like that, right? So that exit is not 40 years from now, it's 5 to 10 years. Just trying to align.
But the question, interesting question is, You said that a lot of them are consolidating and going out to 128.
Well, they're south.
Or, well, because the reason, the whole thing, and one of the reasons we've always had such a low vacancy rate now, it's location. Because it's the nearest place that you can get the tractor trailers in and then swap out, and go into the city. So, but I guess what you're saying though is that they're swapping that location out.
So there's been consolidations in some of these smaller. 8,000 square foot warehousing with low ceilings, right? And they're eating these companies up, just American unawareness system structure. Even not super large companies, but larger companies like Casa Lucas is every year staying to rebuild to massive facility, right? And they've done some acquisitions in 5 years as well. The companies in Chelsea, whatever it was, but they're kind of developing. Now that's still local family-owned region business, but they're in a much larger scale. So regional versus where we are.
That was a good time to be planning, and it's great that you're having these conversations with your neighbors and the other condo owners, because from where I sit, in terms of the regulatory review process, that people that start designing their building at the beginning of a market cycle, often by the time they get through that, then they've missed the cycle. And so I'm just saying this to reinforce what Michael said earlier, that now is the time to get all the pieces in motion for when those tenants and those companies are coming in a few years. So right now is the time to be acting for what might happen in 5 or 10 years. Incidentally, I hear what you guys are saying about your businesses. I'm the first generation of my family not to be in fish wholesaling. It was in New York, but my uncle sold the business. But for my parents' generation, I think it goes back like 5 generations to the 1800s of doing fish, just like you see in Newmarket here, those kind of businesses. So just as an aside from my work as a planner, that narrative is my family's narrative too.
I would just add, I think that the way that the dimensions and things like that have been rolled out, it would favor you trying to look at what the ceiling is. If you did build up and realize the full value that the combined sites would have, I think that may start to attract potential developers that you could partner with to take care of your involved families and other members of the association. And it's not unprecedented. I don't know all the specifics, but the Flower Exchange just did that recently to turn that over. And then I think go back to the thing we just talked about: food, transportation, construction. Those things will never ever go away. And I have teenagers too, and I wonder, well, what are they going to do? So I think we're all in that sort of generational question here. But I would say that fortune favors the bold, and having a way to just visualize it for yourself may actually help everyone in your group see what's possible. And surely there's some headaches short term to
Totally
seeing this. Yeah.
All of these people be on board at the
But we're all excited.
that might be more.
Good architects help. They're a good architect.
Does anyone have any other questions? Well, thank you all. I hope this has been helpful. Please, what I should have done, and I apologize for not having Plan Newmarket handouts, but I assume that a lot of people, if you have gone onto it, if you haven't, go to the BPDA website and just go BPDA Plan Newmarket, and the entire thing will play out in front of you. And if you do want hard copies and all, please contact our office. I think our contact info is on the flyer and we will be happy. Okay, thank you all. It's about 5 after 9 and we're good to go. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone on Zoom as well.